So, it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, we saw summer turn into fall, which means the NBA season is inching closer and closer, and as the season continues to approach, we start to have even more storylines to follow, so we definitely still have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Buck, and he says that the fact that the Celtics offered Jaylen Brown in a trade offer for Kevin Durant will end up hurting the team's chemistry during the season and may hold them back on the court. One of the most underrated aspects of competing at the highest level is having a team that gets along with each other off the court, and the camaraderie of being a team through and through. If vibes are high off the court, more than likely that will translate to some good vibes on the court. And when everybody's on the same page, the play on the court gets a boost. Jaylen Brown definitely saw the fact that the Celtics were offering him in trades, and he also tweeted out quote-unquote SMH during the whole thing, so he clearly wasn't too thrilled about it. But even with all of this being said, the NBA is a business, and all of the players know this. If the team was offering him in trades for lesser players, I would understand why he would feel disrespected and maybe hold a grudge. But this is for Kevin Durant that we're talking about here. Even if he is a bit upset with the organization for the way they've gone about things, at the end of the day, he is still a member of the Celtics, and when the season starts, this will all be behind them. The biggest thing that can cover up personal frustrations is winning, and after making a run to the finals last season, and arguably getting even better this offseason, the Celtics are set to have another season filled with even more winning. Winning covers up a lot, but I will say that the original take here could come into play if the Celtics get off to a slow start. I don't think the Celtics will struggle next season. They should finish as one of the best teams in the East again, but on the off chance that they don't, then the Jaylen situation could be something to monitor. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from the Happy Duck, and he says that even with Donovan Mitchell now on the team, the Cavaliers will still be either a fringe playoff team or a team that participates in the play-in tournament. This is something that comes off as hating when it's said out loud, and you first think about it, but let's take a step back here and analyze the current landscape of the Eastern Conference. The Cavs were on track to make the playoffs for most of last season before injuries hampered them at the end of the year, and obviously adding a player like Mitchell to this group makes them better, but the conversation has to be had about how much better and how many teams they actually pass as a result of it. The 8 playoff teams in the East last year were the Heat, Celtics, Bucks, 76ers, Raptors, Bulls, Nets, and Hawks. Of those teams, the Heat, Celtics, Bucks, 76ers, Nets, and Hawks all feel like locks to be playoff teams again next year as well, leaving 2 spots left for the taking, and the Cavaliers will more than likely be filling one of those spots. When Mitchell was in Utah, they were typically a middle-seeded team in the 4 to 5 range because they build their success around their defense, anchored by Rudy Gobert, while their backcourt struggled a bit defensively, but the backcourt in Utah also handled most of the offensive creation, so it was a trade-off. Now in Cleveland, I'm sensing a ton of similarities to those Jazz teams, as they're a defensive-minded team anchored by guys like Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, but then Mitchell and Darius Garland are both subpar defenders while proving to be elite in terms of offensive ability. I think the Cavs will also end up safely in the playoffs in the 4 to 6 range seeding-wise because of this, but I'm hesitant to rank them amongst the best of the best in the conference right now. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Jay-Soo, and he says a lot here, but basically his main point is that the Chicago Bulls are going to fall back outside of the playoff picture this year. In the last segment, I ran through the Eastern Conference playoff teams from last year, and then I went through the teams that I thought were locks to make it again. If you were paying attention, you would recall that I listed 6 teams I believed were sure things for the playoff spot, and then the Cavaliers took a 7th spot, leaving 1 spot, while the Bulls were not one of those teams that I rattled off. This offseason, a lot of Eastern Conference teams got better across the board, and the Bulls, to put it lightly, didn't. The Celtics added Malcolm Brogdon to their NBA Finals core, the Bucks are getting a healthy Chris Middleton back, the 76ers added a ton of depth, the Cavaliers added Donovan Mitchell, the Hawks added DeJounte Murray, and the Bulls added Andre Drummond? I think the final playoff spot will be fought for between the Raptors and the Bulls, and if I'm being completely honest, I would probably take the Raptors at this point in time. DeMar DeRozan had the best season he's ever had last year, which feels completely unrepeatable. Lonzo Ball struggles to stay healthy every season, and they didn't make any other significant moves to bolster themselves in a league where everyone else looks like they're passing them by. If DeMar DeRozan declines at all, then they're definitely in trouble, because while Zach LaVine is still an all-star caliber player, we saw Nikola Vucevic start to slow down last season, and that may be a trend that continues this year as well. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Joshua, and he says that if Russell Westbrook doesn't come to terms with the role that the Lakers need him to play, then he might be out of the league entirely next season. Again, this is a pretty crazy thing to say out loud, and the immediate reaction is to just brush it off, but when we actually dive deeper into the situation, we come to realize there is a lot of stuff piling up that we simply cannot ignore. A report from Ramona Shelburne of ESPN just came out saying that even though Russell Westbrook has not formally requested a trade, he has remained willing and open to a trade throughout the offseason. He is definitely not too thrilled about his current situation on the Lakers, and every indication is pointing towards him wanting to go back to a team that will give him the free rein to run the offense without having to tone anything down about his play style like he needs to do in LA alongside players like LeBron James and Anthony Davis. The obvious issue with this, though, is that there is no interest in him across the league, because if there was, he would have already been gone and traded away. Russell Westbrook's out-of-control play combined with his apparent unwillingness to adapt to what is needed from him is a recipe for disaster, because he's currently on the last year of his contract and will be hitting free agency next summer. If this season goes how last year went, then the interest in him in free agency is going to hit all-time lows. Looking at it from every perspective, rebuilding teams won't want to bring him in because his ball-dominant playstyle will hurt the development of their young talent that they are looking to develop. Playoff contenders won't want to bring him in because they'll see the fact that he couldn't even adjust his game around guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, so how will he adjust for them? Then middling teams may offer him a short-term deal, but at the same time teams will be hesitant to limit their upside with him leading the way. Russ's future will come down to his willingness to embrace a new role as his athleticism begins to decline, and if he's unwilling to do so, then he may not last much longer. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.